I'm hoping this is a lot of fun for all of us. I'm going to try to have fun with this talk. This is not my typical type of lecture I would give because so I'm not exactly sure what you are interested in. So if it could be a little bit engaging, that'd be more enjoyable for me, and hopefully more enjoyable for you. I'm happy to take questions throughout. I'm happy to go off on tangents a little bit. Please feel free to write questions on the note cards that we can take afterwards, or feel free to express your questions verbally at the end as well. I'm here to learn with you. Let's make this fun and enjoyable, please. This topic is very large. I'm not going to be able to cover everything about AI in healthcare. I'm just going to share some of my thoughts right now, and my thoughts are evolving quite quickly on this topic because AI is rapidly evolving, as I hope you may be aware. As in background, whenever you give a talk in medicine, you have to give your disclosures. But the main disclosure I wanted to share is that I consider myself an imaging scientist. I take images and try to make them better and try to make decisions with images. I'm not really an AI scientist. And nowadays, most of the folks using AI are not AI scientists. They're folks that have all kinds of different interests, and they're using AI now to advance their goals. That's the way AI is right now. AI is becoming like prevalent in almost every field of science, but also in every industry, right? It's becoming almost like computers. If you ask somebody who does work, do you use a computer for your work? Many fields, many information fields use computers. It's getting that way with AI. Do you use AI for your work? In 10 years, probably everyone's going to be saying, yes, I use AI for my work. Now, 50 years ago, you didn't hear AI every other day on the news. Now you can find a story on AI every day, every hour coming out in the news. Why is that? What do folks think? When did the AI revolution begin? How many people think it started in the 80s? We started hearing AI every day in the 80s. It wasn't the 80s. How about the 90s? 90s could be. It was a tech-heavy decade. How about the 2000s? Maybe. Actually, it was 2012, and I'm going to tell you the story why 2012 was the big launch point. Just was it 12 years ago? Is that hard to believe? Just 12 years ago is when it really started launching off. And I'm going to give you a little bit of the background on that. The term AI is not a new concept. It's been around a while. And they started using it in the 50s. And back then, it covered all things where the computer was trying to mimic a human. And back then, someone would actually teach the computer, write the program to tell the computer how to play chess. And they had computers that played chess in the 50s and 60s and 70s. One of the big changes when we started doing machine learning, where the computer learned on its own how to do stuff. Rather than me programming every single rule in, the computer could learn some of those rules on its own. But it was around 2012 where this concept of deep learning started, and I'm going to talk to you about that. And that is really where AI took off. Part of the way of thinking about this is the way humanity has approached discovery over the existence of humanity. And this is one way to formulate that. For thousands of years, humans have been observing the world around them, writing down what they saw, making observations. A lot of biology is still like this. Let's take these cells and look at them in the microscope, describe what I see. It's very observational in nature. In modern times, the last hundreds of years, we've been adding theory to that. Let's describe how gravity works. Let's write equations for how the planets, circle the sun. We were adding theory to the mix. In the last few decades, we started using computing to advance science, basically simulating a lot of things. Like we have an understanding of the theory. I can simulate the planets going around the sun. I can do new discovery with those simulations. And then in recent times, starting in around 2009, Microsoft coined this idea that we are in the data-intensive age, where we're not learning from what we see or from how we simulate things, but actually from just collecting lots and lots of information and learning directly from the information. And that is possible because of the age of the internet, because of the way we record information about ourselves. There's just a lot of information out there to learn from. And we're entering this, what they also call the fourth epoch of discovery, which is happening now. It's quite exciting. We're learning from the data itself. And this is where AI comes comes in. If I were to describe this in simple terms when I start my computational classes on campus, we describe it like this. Conventional programming would be, I have a computer, I sit down and I tell the computer the rules, I give it the program. Then when I feed it data, the computer knows how to spit out an output. In this new epoch of discovery, what we're doing is just giving the computer all the data, let the computer learn the program. So in the old days, chess, if I wanted the computer to play chess, I would type in all the rules, give the computer some good moves to kind of counter other moves. And I have to hard code every little rule into the computer. And those systems did okay to win at chess. I could never beat when I was growing up, I could barely beat the computer in chess. But now we just feed the computer lots of successful chess games and failed chess games and all kinds of counter moves. Let the computer learn the relationships, and the computer figures out the best way to respond to any move. And systems now playing chess, can beat grand chess masters quite regularly. Okay, let's move into the healthcare a little bit. So what's been happening in recent times? One way to look at this is, the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, that's what approves medical devices and drugs. And when a company wants to put a device in the clinic, they're going to go to the FDA to get approval. Hopefully you can see from this plot, it's been skyrocketing the number of devices that use AI of some form for healthcare applications. Skyrocketing, although there's only, as of last week when I checked, there's only 950 devices approved. Does that sound like a lot to you? Yeah. It sounds like a lot, but this is across all of healthcare. I know it sounds like a lot, but think of like all of the things you could do in a healthcare setting. This is relatively small amount of products that have been approved, I think. But it is skyrocketing. You're right, it's somewhere in between exciting and not that much. And most of these devices, if you look here at the different fields, this maybe you can't see from where you're sitting, but it's radiology, cardiovascular applications, neuro, hematology. Radiology is at the top. Vast majority of them are radiology. Radiology is the imaging practice where they take CTs, MRIs, chest radiographs. Most of these devices are in radiology, and I'm going to tell you why right now. What do we do in radiology? These are the kind of tasks that a radiologist does with less cute images, okay? But one of the tasks they're doing often, the most common task in radiology is a classification task. Is it cancer or not cancer? Is it a broken wrist or not a broken wrist? Classes. You belong to one of multiple classes. Here's an image. Tell me if you're a cat or a dog. That's the job of the radiologist. Or the radiologist is trying to localize things in the image, like, is there a cancer and where is the cancer, right? Or tell me exactly where the cancer, that's the segmentation task. Draw me exactly every little element of that picture that belongs to cancer and every element that doesn't belong to cancer. These are common tasks, and these we often do with natural images of things around us too. And on your phone, when you take a picture of someone, they've gotten so smart that they will draw a box around all of the faces in the image. I don't know if you see that on your phone, or it'll tell you who's in the image, which is a classification task. The phones are doing these kind of tasks. In healthcare, I don't know if you can see down here, this is going by increasing challenge. So cat or dog, it's a little harder to tell me where is the cat and dog. Tell me exactly the outline of the cat and dog. Estimation would be something like, give me a number about the cat and dog. How old is the cat? Much harder task than just, is it a cat? Prediction would be, how old is the cat, and can you tell me when the cat needs to get its teeth cleaned next? Predict something about the cat. Or when is the cat going to have a hairball that's going to come up? Predicting something. It's a harder task. We do this in medicine, though. Here's an image of a cancer. Tell me when the patient's going to need new treatments based on that. It's a harder task. What if all the promise of AI in healthcare is to get to this stuff like where we're going to get insights about these images. So a challenging task would be, yeah, it's a cat, but tell me what's their favorite cat food and when they want to get a treat or things like that. It'd be much more complicated to do those harder tasks. Very similar to what we do in medicine. These tasks I bring up because, well, here's an example. This is a classic humorous classification task. It is hard for AI to do this. Can you predict bagel versus dog? And there's a lot of these humorous, but this is a straight up classification task. So where did this is, I want to give you, this is a little bit of history lesson. I'm just hanging in there with the history. Computer systems were often challenged to do these tasks. For years, it was sort of a fun academic exercise. Can you classify images? And for years, they were building out this very large data set with over 1 million images that had 1,000 different classes. These are natural images of things around us with photographs, like cat, dogs, horse, train. And it was a very hard challenge. So it wasn't just cat or dog, but it wasn't just schnauzer or not schnauzer. It was miniature schnauzer versus standard schnauzer versus giant schnauzer. Very challenging set of images. And here the challenge was, can you take an image and tell me miniature schnauzer versus giant schnauzer? Pretty challenging. And this is the performance of this over years. This is, again, a little bit all the computer science labs around the world would hammer at this challenge and try to win every year. The best a human can do on this data set is 5% error rate. So they would get 95% right, and then they mess up probably some of those miniature and giant schnauzers, which are challenging. So computers for years in 2010, 2011, were nowhere close to as good as a human, right? They were getting 28% of the images wrong. Still smart, but they were failing a lot. The big breakthrough came in 2012 with a thing called AlexNet. This is the beginning of deep learning. And these relied on architectures that were fairly simple initially, and then with AlexNet, it got more complicated. And then over the years, got better and better. And then in 2015, there was an architecture that was super deep, very complicated, that beat a human. But the breakthrough was here with this new thinking in 2012. And well, let me just give you an idea. With that original AlexNet architecture, you'd feed it these images, and it would report out the probabilities of something. Like here's a picture, and it would think it was a Dalmatian, maybe a great, could be an elderberry, could be a bull terrier. But you see, it's a challenging task. It's got some cherries in there. Yeah, so it's a very challenging set of images. Yeah, this is supposed to be a Madagascar cat, but that also thinks it's a howler monkey. Very challenging. Now, AlexNet, when it came out, it was a paper at a conference. It was a team from Google and Jeffrey Hinton, who is one of these godfathers of AI. I don't know if there's any academic background folks here, but when you publish a paper, the impact of that is often graded on how often it was cited, like how many other people relied on that paper. And just checking this week, this paper has up to 132,000 citations, which is in academics is an incredible amount of citations because it was very revolutionary and it kicked off this AI revolution. Do we have any folks here that are academic backgrounds? Maybe couples. So yeah, a lot of citations. I'm going to skip the next slide and go on. So 2012, an amazing architecture came out, started the deep learning AI revolution. So just look, this is a consultant that publishes companies working in a field. So in 2016, this was, I don't know if you remember, we used to call it big data. That was the buzzword back then. We were living in a big data age. Now we just call it the AI. You hear much more of the term AI. But a lot of companies in 2016, if you move forward in time, 2019, many, many more companies just marching forward to current days. These are all companies that kind of work in the AI machine learning area specifically. You know, not big companies that are like Siemens, GE, Exxon. I mean, they're using AI. We're not on this list. These are companies that are just doing AI explicitly as their products. Lots and lots of companies, and across all industries, what I'm getting at. These are all different little categories of, you know, consumer to databases to governance. And I'm just going to zoom into healthcare and life sciences. And likely this is not all the companies, but this gives you an idea. There's a lot of actually fairly new companies working in AI. If you haven't heard about the revolution, it's happening. So lots of companies. But I want to just kind of set the stage. You may have, this is an old concept, this Gartner hype cycle that they use for any new technology. So when something new comes out, this is often what happens to the way humans respond to it. The technology starts here in time. Then people get real excited and get super ambitious about what it's going to do. Then they realize it can't do everything they ever wanted. So trust of disillusionment. Then they get a little happy again, and then they're actually using it and working well. Okay, this is a concept throughout your life, you may have seen things like this, right? Like microwaves came out, everyone thought it was going to solve everything. We only really use it to heat up popcorn, right? So, but anyways, it's a very typical cycle. This is my view, especially in healthcare. I mean, in some industries, AI might be over here in time and actually reaching some real value. For healthcare right now, we're still in this peak of inflated expectations. Okay, we're still like, I think it's safe to say there's a lot of companies here. Likely many of them are not going to make it. Okay. So this is my opinionated view. We can debate this if folks like to debate. But this is sort of where we are. We're kind of excited. I'm up here and I'm doing research, excited, but I have to realize it's not going to live up to everything we say. Any questions about this? Yes, please.
How do you imagine how to keep track of all this? You as a person, as a researcher.
Keep track of all this?
Well, yeah, I mean, how do you, what do you look all the time?
Okay, I'm a limited human being, so I'm not able to keep track of all of it. Yeah. But where do I look all the time? I mean, I'm still very much working at the university, so we're trying to keep track of like the bleeding edge of methods. I'm a little less aware of industry, but I'm trying to share what I know about the industry. It's very hard to keep track of. Yeah.
When you work with,
Okay, here and then here. Guys.
do you use Altman's systems, Chat GPT, or what systems do you use?
Yeah, I'm going to give some examples of what I do in our group. But Sam Altman is the CEO of OpenAI, which is that company that came out with Chat GPT. I don't use that for my research right now. But has a huge promise. Those type of systems have a huge promise that I'll get to at the end, for sure. Yeah.
I guess what you're doing here, I guess, is there are innumerable sets of odds that you run into, I guess, in order to get a right answer for a diagnosis or an image. And that, tell me if I'm wrong, I'm trying to get my head around. The computer is capable of taking in all these odds and using the best chances you have to get at the right answer. And also algorithms is another thing. Do they work with those where you have an algorithm and then let's say you run into a brick wall, oops, let's try another algorithm, because it can do almost an infinite number of algorithms. Is that the way it works?
Good question. I think of it, we have to hard code something for the computer. So we usually call it, we fix the architecture, like think of it, all the possible connections that are allowed. We fix it to be, there's going to be a billion relationships, literally a billion things that it's allowed to learn, not 2 billion, just a billion relationships. And then we feed it tons of data to learn patterns.
Yeah.
Is that helpful?
I think we can.
So you've got to fix, it's not completely, though people are working towards there, it's not completely liquid. There's this concept of a liquid AI, which is open as opposed to a frozen AI. So most things we freeze the architecture. We tell it you only have a billion things you can learn. And then it learns the billion connections. But some people are trying to say, okay, we'll start with a billion and we're going to unfreeze it, bring it back to liquid state and let it flux with the data. Is that a little bit helpful? I'm not, in the interest of your sanity, I won't go into the gory details of the AI, but I have a little bit of that here. I'll give you some examples of how we use it and a little bit about where our group works. It kind of whittles at this very large revolution going on. So some of the motivations, the way I frame our work is there is a lot of biomarkers, meaning information collected about patients, way more than your physician is going to be able to digest when they meet with you. In particular, even images, like a CT image of a chest is super rich with information. And a radiologist cannot, just the human mind cannot digest all the information. We're going to need to have support systems that help humans incorporate all this information together to make a decision. And certainly in medicine, and I think in the future of a lot of our aspects of life, we're going to be augmented by AI. Our decisions are going to come with the help of AI. For example, like I have a Fitbit, and it reminds me to take more steps at the end of the day. That's kind of an AI. It's like a system that's helping me make a better decision for my health. Kind of a weak decision, weak example. It's coming where we're going to get more and more help with our decisions. And then where I like to go in medicine is a lot of medicine is very fragmented. Like the radiologist reads the images, the pathologist will look at the slides from your biopsy, the primary care doctor might look at your blood tests, but it's very hard to integrate all that information together. And we need systems to help us integrate all this rich information. So I'm going to give a little bit of other context here. One of the things that I'm interested in doing is moving from the ordinary to extraordinary with what we can do. So on the ordinary side, this is something that humans can do. And I'll give you some examples. Like this is a CT of the chest, left and right lung, and there is a non-small cell lung cancer here that I could probably teach you how to read in 2 seconds, right? Can anyone, you can see, of course, well, the arrow helps, but yeah, there's a large mass in the middle of this lung, okay?
Does the arrow always come up?
Yeah, well, if you had AI, it might actually do that, right? But it's not a particularly challenging thing to see once you learn that big masses in the lungs are suspicious. Okay, that's an ordinary human can do that. So some of the ordinary questions we ask of this image, is there a lesion there? Where is the lesion? One of the questions radiologists often ask now, like, what's the doubling time? Like, how fast is it growing? And they can usually get a rough estimate of that looking at that image. But extraordinary things that we can't do right now that physicians will struggle with is, what is the best therapy given this image and everything else I know about the patient? Or when is the next adverse thing going to happen for the patient? Or even harder, how do you communicate this to the patient, knowing what you know about the patient's background? That's a very challenging thing. It's not reading the radiologist report, which if any of you have done, is not great communication, right? It's usually very hard to read, even as someone who looks at them all day. Or can they do this with 0 errors? That's something that medicine still struggles with. We still make errors because humans are involved. I'm not anti-human, I'm just saying, can we do it with 0 errors? And a lot of these, if AI has been stuck in the ordinary, AI can tell you cat, dog, rubber duck from the image. It can find stop signs, which are necessary for autonomous driving cars. So ordinary tasks. Can the AI drive the car as well as the human? Can the AI fly the plane as well as the human? Personally, I'm interested in seeing if we can do things that we would struggle to do as a human. Like, can we do better than humans? And this is one of the projects we've worked on. Is these are ultrasounds of thyroid nodules in the neck, and it's difficult. You can find nodules with the ultrasound, but determining if it's cancer or not is still challenging. So can we get the AI to help us do these harder things that humans struggle with? So I'm just going to give you an example of the project we've done in our lab, and we have 2 students that worked on this over the years, Greg and Maniza. The task here is we have breast MRI images, which are used to detect breast cancer. Can we take these images and do a better job predicting cancer or not cancer? Classification task, cancer or not cancer. And the way to get the AI to work is you need a lot of data. So in this project, we had 10,000 MRI images. Some of them had cancer, some of them did not have cancer. And we're trying to merge the images with other things we know about the patient that are risk factors, like patient age, breast density, other things we know about the patient. And where our research is, we're interested in developing the architecture that maps image, age to cancer, not cancer. So we were looking at kind of where to fuse the information. So I won't go into details if anybody wants I can answer more. But one of the benefits of this method, which is common in AI, is that we're going to take the things we learned from another domain, like that we use the ImageNet data set, which was cat, dog, schnauzer, giant schnauzer, teach an architecture with millions of images, how to do cat, dog, schnauzer, and then take that same architecture and fine tune it, tweak it with our smaller data set, which is only 10,000 images. And this is very common where we rarely have enough data to teach these massive AI systems. But if we keep fine tuning them, we're kind of like making them smarter and smarter. It's kind of like going to kindergarten here, and then now we're in first grade. We're still kind of in first grade stage, I would say, but we're teaching the system to get smarter and smarter. And we've showed that doing these kind of approaches does lead to a little bit better performance. So we're able to detect fairly well cancer, not cancer, based on breast MRI. Another project, so that was a classification one. This is that object detection task, which is where is something in the image? And this is motivated because actually to help us identify child abuse. So very commonly, children present to the emergency room and they get a chest radiograph. And if there's a rib fracture on the radiograph, then it's highly predictive of child abuse for infants who can't tell you what's wrong with them, right? And this is also, radiographs are the common piece of evidence that's used to help identify these problems in society. So this is a challenging task. It's very hard to see these fractures on children because they don't have fully formed bones yet. So that when they get a fracture, it's not like it's a displaced fracture in their ribs. It's a soft tissue injury usually. So on this images, even if you had up close, it's very hard to see them by eye. And we're going to see if the computer can find them and identify them. So, clinically important problem, a little bit on the edge of possible. And Jonathan and Ethan, our students, have been working on this. So we have a bunch of different architectures. I'm happy to go into it. We're trying to teach the computer. Here's an image. Show us where the fractures are. These are some examples of different images. And most of these children, I don't know if you saw the age there, they're between 0 and 2 years old. They're young. But when they have fractures, when they present with a fracture, it's often in a constellation, multiple fractures. You can see these little boxes are around the different fractures in these images. So we use this data and we've got some pretty good results. So we're comparing, trying to help expert pediatric radiologists. It's a hard task. So these are numbers that we usually give to say how good we are. 1 would be perfect. So their expert radiologists are in the 0.7s in this. And our method that we worked on for many years is in the 0.7s now too, which is good. We're kind of excited about this method. And what it does is it, presents boxes around where we think there's fractures. We're not trying to replace the radiologist. I'll say that for sure. And we're also not detecting anything. We're not diagnosing anything. We're just the goal here is to present the radiologist with here's an image. Please look a little closer at these regions to make sure there's not a fracture there. So I just showed some examples of radiology AI, like here's an image, please do what the radiologist does or make the radiologist better at it. There is a lot of other places where you can imagine using AI to help in a radiology practice or in any healthcare practice, other than just help the radiologist do exactly what they usually do. Some of the areas you might not be thinking about where this product's coming out is just getting AI to help schedule patients. Having a system that would help interact with the patient, find out when they really want to come, that might send reminders to the patient, that might allow you to cancel your appointment. Wouldn't it be nice if you could just cancel your appointment or reschedule it through the computer easily? That is a clear area where AI could be helpful for healthcare. There's a lot of other places. I want to show you a little kind of different example too. In radiology, one of the very expensive problems is when a patient doesn't show up for their appointment. So if you have an MRI and you don't show up, there's a whole hour of wasted time on the MRI scanner. And so no-show estimation trying to predict which patient's not going to show up would help them a lot in radiology and in some other very expensive areas like surgery. If you have your surgery scheduled and you fail to show up, that's a huge expense to the clinic. So there's some folks and some companies trying to do AI to predict who's not going to show up. And if I could tell you that Adam's going to forget his appointment on Friday, the system could remind me multiple times, or force me to go, or send me an Uber driver to get there. You can imagine a smarter way of getting people to show up for their appointments. Okay.
I must get 47 reminders for every doctor's appointment.
Oh,
Is that
you
it?
do? You must be on the short list. I'm not showing up. That's
Your
It's-
past history of screwing up.
yeah, it's definitely a computer nudging you. I don't know if it's smart computer, but it's something nudging you. Mhm. Yeah, there's a good chance that AI will make our lives more annoying. Yeah, so augmented, improved diagnostics, better like direct care, no-show estimation. Here's another place where AI, probably in the next 10 years, you're going to see, even though you won't see it this week in your clinic. And it's this idea of ambient AI, which is a new term that there's AI systems that are kind of listening. Now, I don't want to creep you out, but your phones are, some of them, if Siri is turned on your phone, it's an ambient AI system that's sort of listening to you, waiting to be helpful or annoying. Okay, but these systems in a healthcare setting, let's describe how useful this could be. In particular, while you're there for the visit, if you had a system that was listening to your appointment with your provider and then summarized it for you afterwards in text, so that you would have a kind of a written reminder of what you said, and summarize it in a way that you could understand it, like designed for your education level, for your healthcare, literacy. That would be an awesome system. And there's definitely AI. OpenAI has ChatGPT that can listen to you and summarize what you're saying. The systems we have now could totally do this. They're just not available yet in the clinic. Does that sound like a nice thing? Like if you were talking to a provider and then someone handed you a summary of all the important things that were brought up, I just think that would be immensely helpful. We don't have that right now, but that's very doable. Or just making better notes for you, for your provider. The big selling point for this is telling the physician that they don't have to type in summaries themselves about their encounter with you. And if you've ever read the post-encounter summaries, some of them are not very good, right? Because they don't have a lot of time, honestly. Some of them, does anybody have had a good post-encounter summary? Good. I'm glad you have found. Good. And you got good. You're just trying to butter up. Yeah, question?
Well, the doctors say I've got a problem, I want to see you, and he says, yes, I'm booked up, and I'll see you in 3 months.
Right.
Right. Do the AI just shorten it up? Is this going to be this reducing number of medical people, the more aging people, which needs more, allow them to maybe be more effective and get this information out to assist and shorten these times?
Good question. Yeah. The promise is that it could streamline the workflow for clinics and allow them to see more patients and so you won't have to wait as long. Definitely these companies that are selling these things, this is like an AI scribe, which is as described, would save a lot of the scribing time, which is a chunk of the time of most encounters. So there is that promise, but I just want to, I showed you that you're at the top of that peak of expectations, but I would love to tell you it'll be here next week, but one day it'll be more streamlined.
Did you see? They had a phone, and if you called into the phone and talked on the phone, it showed up in script on the screen on the phone. So you'd have a system here where, yeah, exactly what you're saying. If that would be applied to the doctor's office, listen to the conversation, give you a printout.
Exactly. That's the promise. Isn't that exciting? I think. Yes.
Yeah, one other thing is most physician offices have a standard template of time 15-minute appointment, half-hour appointment, whatever,
Mhm.
with AI. Could, in a preliminary sense, evaluate the needs and say, do you need a 5-minute appointment or a 35-minute appointment, depending on what has been gleaned ahead of you.
Yeah, that would be the promise, potential. And this product, evidently, they say, you know, this is the pre-visit module you can buy from them, probably for a very expensive price. And this would kind of interview you over the phone. And maybe it would assess and triage you and decide how much time you actually need with the physician. Yeah, I think that's very doable, even with the systems we have now from these ChatGPT, these large language model architectures can do this. They can take spoken text and make pretty advanced reasoning from it. It's not here yet, though. But I think it's coming. And there's many a company trying to do this on the pre-registration, the during visit, after visit areas. Yes.
Is AI, the doctor will like AI, obviously AI listening. Doctors will
Yeah.
a lot of stress. In the summary, after summary, doctor have to review it. Who knows, someone maybe said,
Good question. So she's asking, will the doctor like the AI? Can you, 2 slides? I don't answer it in these 2 slides. I think that's a very good question. So part of the reason people are selling these is this is one of the challenges in healthcare. It's physician burnout. Like physicians just get fatigued and many of them leave practice altogether, or they take very long vacations, or they're not as productive when they're there in the office. So this survey, one of the main reasons why physicians burn out is that there's too many bureaucratic tasks for a physician to do. Of course, you could say this about many jobs, but it happens for physicians too. Do we have physicians here? Yeah, okay, a couple. So that's a common reason for burnout, or spending too many hours at work, lack of respect, insufficient compensation. One of these is too much time with the computer, I thought. Where's the computer one?
No.
Increasing computerization of practice. So physicians don't necessarily like lots of computers in their practice, probably because they're spending a lot of time typing and trying to look up things on their computer. So if AI could replace that typing and looking up stuff, it might be helpful. Hold that, let me just get this next concept out, and then we're gonna have lots of open questions.
Okay.
This is, I think, a helpful quote that I'm just gonna read out loud. So some of you may not be able to see it from the back. The greatest opportunity offered by AI is not reducing errors or workload, or even curing cancer. It is the opportunity to restore the precious and time-honored connection and trust, the human touch between patients and doctors. Not only will we have more time to come together, enabling far deeper communication and compassion, but also we will be able to revamp how we select and train our doctors. So Eric Topol writes a lot about AI and AI in healthcare. His take on this is that AI would free up the physician to be present to their patients, would free up the healthcare system to be a partner with patients, as opposed to bogging it down with a lot more buttons and computers. There is a chance that AI doesn't go that direction. There's a chance that AI just adds more burden and more buttons and more things more systems you have to access. But the promise and the hope is that AI actually streamlines life. The promise, to say it in other ways, the promise of technology is supposed to make our life easier. Some of our technologies probably do that. Some of our technologies, this is a little philosophical, some of our technologies haven't made our life easier. They actually made our life harder. Okay, now we have that. Did that respond to some of your questions? Maybe physicians will have more time to be present.
A good example of early enthusiasm, and it petered out before AI was the electronic medical record. That was supposed to be the cure-all, be-all and end-all. And having done it for a number of years, not good.
Yeah, electronic medical record was supposed to make doctors' lives better. Many doctors have burned out because of the EMR.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think an important burden on medical providers is interaction between multiple reimbursement and insurance companies that all have their own particular needs, and trying to navigate that malaise of, AI could do that directly and take it off the requirements or providers,
Mhm.
of course, I have a philosophical idea about insurance companies in general, but that's another issue.
So you bring up a very good point, is big expense of healthcare is just the billing challenge, the bureaucracy of getting the billing to work. And a lot of probably of your time, of your advocating for your healthcare, and the time of my wife and I advocating for healthcare is spent talking to insurance companies, trying to get them to fix the bills. It's horrible. So if I were to rank, this is now being philosophical, if I were to rank the challenges in healthcare, curing cancer, it's very hard. We have not been able to cure all cancer. Extremely gnarly. Fixing healthcare billing, it's up there.
Yeah.
Near cancer. I mean, there's some hard challenges out there. Yeah. I'm not solving those, but I'm with you in those challenges. But I like this view as like, first of all, it's the greatest opportunity. It's not like it's a realized thing yet, but the hope is that AI, when done well in a clinical setting, will streamline the clinic, make the doctors, the nurses, all the providers happier, have more time to spend with their patients, lead to better healthcare. And I think that's very possible. Even if it just, we talked about it, even if it just helped write the notes, summarize the interactions, decide how much time you need to be with the doctor. I would say bad AI would be one that was in the doctor's office. You go in, you drive, make your way to the doctor's office, you get in a room, and the only thing you interact with is the computer.
Yeah.
That would not be a good use of AI. That could be a possibility. Oh, I don't want that to happen. Virtual visits where we're so virtual you don't talk to anyone. Yeah.
If it could lead towards standardization, I think that would save a lot of inefficiency. An example, with each insurance company has their own systems and own agendas and whatever they do. But if there's a way they can figure out what the insurance companies would agree that this is the best way to go, the most efficient way, then it might make life a lot easier for everybody.
Yeah.
It's like a famous story. I think it was a big fire back in the 1800s in Baltimore or something, and they called all the fire departments in the town, and they discovered, oh my God, the hydrants were not standardized, and so they couldn't use the hoses.
Yeah.
And that's what they figured out, the standardization piece with things.
Fair. So standardizing both the treatment, the care, and the way we charge for it and reimburse for it, that would be hugely beneficial. I agree. So how am I doing with time? I have 5 minutes or? Are folks still hanging in there? A couple more slides, or you want me to?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
2 more slides. I got 2 more slides. Just so a couple of more concepts just to get across is what AI is doing now is still very much narrow AI. Each system solves one task, one narrow task. Even if it's an extraordinarily hard task, it's still trained to do one task. And that's where AI is right now. The promise of AI is, can it become general in intelligence, meaning it can do many more tasks than what it was taught to do. So I could teach a system to detect the cancer, and then it could also detect the rib fractures too. And it could also summarize your conversations, and it could also fix billing. One system to do all that, that would be the future. That's not here. That's far future. There's a lot of speculation and hype around when general intelligence will come. Some folks say it could be this century, could be sooner. And then the other promise of AI is, if you read the science fiction books, is super intelligent systems that not only can they do a lot of different tasks, but they can do them all better than any human could ever do them. And that's the future. So I'm just going to summarize a little bit about, again, my interest area and in this terms. We have a lot of information in healthcare. We have images about ourselves. Phenotype is everything like age, risk factors. We have blood tests. We have your history. We have genomic information. A whole lot of information that no one clinician is going to be able to ingest. So we are going to benefit from AI to summarize it, make sense of it, to help the clinician, help the patient. And the reason why we do this, the goal at the far right, is we want to have better outcomes for patients. Healthier patients, live longer. The other thing we would like though is better outcomes at a higher value. Value is a big buzzword in healthcare. Value meaning there's dollars involved here. We can't afford to do everything possible. Right now, your provider rarely takes costs, healthcare, financial costs at play. I'm not a physician, so I'm allowed to talk about this. Physicians never bring up costs. That was never part of their training. They're just not prepared, and they're not supposed to be telling you don't get the PET scan because it costs too much. They're going to tell you get the PET scan because you need it. But it would be great if we could include cost, billing information in healthcare decisions. The other thing we'd like is improved patient-centered outcomes at a higher value, meaning, wouldn't it be nice, I know this is going to be revolutionary, that we take patient preferences into our decision process. And maybe, I don't know if this makes sense to you, but right now, if you go to the doctor, you're usually going to get the standard of care treatment, which is good. You want the standard of care best practices, but it also might be nice for them to bake in what matters to you, right, into those decisions. Like, do you really need the MRI this week because you have an important thing you want to do, or could it wait because you're traveling that month or whatever? Bake in some patient preferences. Other things that are coming is there's a whole lot more data that's actually being collected about us, and more coming soon. So right now you can do personal tracking with, fitness things, my sleep number bed, records how well I sleep. Does anybody have a sleep number bed?
No.
It like at night it's recording how well I sleep. I can't stand it. You can imagine having knowledge of your diet. Right now, your physicians don't know what you're eating in real detail.
I don't know.
There are soon going to be smart toilets coming that are going to measure what's coming out of your body.
Right.
It's coming. There's systems that'll tell you how well you're walking right now. And it's very hard to incorporate all that.
Yeah.
Other personal things could be things about your relationships, where you live, your finances. All of that is a wealth of information that could be used to improve things. No human is going to have the time to ingest all that information. So I think there's value to having AI inform the clinician, but also inform each of us as individuals for bigger goals. Like, can we improve prevention? Can we improve overall health before we become a patient, before we have illnesses? And I think this is a promise for what AI could potentially do in the future. Okay, so I just want to thank a lot of collaborators, and our work is relying on a lot of collaborators, clinical and technical in nature. Our group at MSU, we have great students and postdocs who work with us. Now I'm happy to take some questions. Yes.
Is medical education changing to keep up with the technology so the students and they can go right into practice with more knowledge?
Great question. So is medical education keeping up? Well, one is AI is starting to have a role in many education settings, like even in primary education for young children. I think there's a hope that AI would help teach students, but your question is, are our med students and our future physicians aware of how AI works? Probably not that much yet, but I wouldn't get worried about that because medicine, I view as a very dynamic field. And when you become a physician, it's not like you leave med school and you know everything you need to know for the rest of your career, go out and fix the pipe the same way for the rest of your career. It's not a trade medicine. I view it as a craft. You have to be a craftsman. You have to evolve. Was that a fair thing to say, or do you like that?
Yes, very.
So I think physicians, as long as they're informed, well-informed, and are good learners leaving med school, they'll be in a position to learn and stay up with field, because medicine has changed massively in all of our lives, and we'll continue to do that. Yep.
What are the potentials for abuse or misuse of AI in health?
Yeah, good point. So when I started with these FDA-approved products, most of these products are on the diagnostic tasks, like it'll help you make a decision. And I think it's safe to say that our AI should be augmenting an expert human, not replacing the expert human. So I think there's a chance that if you rely on the system and just say, oh, I just trust it 100%, I won't turn on my brain and think about what it told me. That would be a misuse for current things. It's kind of like this view of a lot of AI now is a co-pilot, not the pilot, meaning it's here to help the pilot do a better job, not to replace. So I think that's one answer to that. The other abuse, that's kind of a misuse. Well, is that a good enough answer for now? Yeah. So I think if you're using AI as your co-pilot, not your replacement. The other misuse, okay, so let's talk bigger. So AI is coming to many industries, and there's talk of it like replacing jobs or even just supplementing jobs. But one of my concerns with AI, and we have this already with our students, is that it could de-skill the workforce. Meaning, I have students that used to know how to program in Python, but now they can just rely on ChatGPT to write the program really well. And their skills are going down. And if you have a physician who used to be able to tell you where the lung cancer is, then they have a system that always is there to tell you, oh, here it is, here it is, here it is. They forget how to do it on their own and they lose some capacity to function. So,
Or there's a power failure.
or there's a power failure, or there's a ransom attack. You don't want to, I think there's a little bit of a concern about de-skilling, not just replacing, but de-skilling the workforce. That's another lecture. But I would rather leave you on there's a lot of potential here than all the concerns. Yeah.
Sir,
Yes.
is AI is very interesting in looking at all kinds of tests and stuff. I would have to say that a fairly large amount of the people, when they go see the doctor, can't really describe exactly what the problem is or the symptom, or they fudge it for their own reasons, want to admit it,
Mhm,
or don't know how to express it.
mhm.
So this AI is gonna have to work in there to help the individual to explain to the doctor to get the answers.
That's a great possible use of AI. That's kind of the classic workup. How do you work up a patient? And part of what they learn teaching med school is how to ask the right questions and really get to what's wrong. Don't expect the patient just to have the paragraph that summarizes everything on their own, right? So using AI to help with the workup, that's, I don't know, 30, 40 years out, but that would be another great place.
To add on to his point, would AI be helpful in lie detecting?
In lie detecting,
Looking at inflection of voices and all.
very likely. I bet you there's a company that's selling a criminal justice systems product for that. Not in healthcare yet, but yeah.
Patients lie.
Patients, patients lie, yeah. I think it'll be, what's the business model for that company? To walk into the clinic and say, I have a system that'll help you detect.
Well, I was in pediatrics and I went
Oh.
to it specifically because kids don't lie.
Hmm,
Ah,
That's one of the main
That's good.
reasons why.
that's a good example. Any other, I really appreciate the questions. Would you like me to answer this pet question? Or I can answer it, I'll answer it afterward.
Yeah.
I like that question. Yeah, thank you all for all the great questions and being engaging. This is a lot of fun for me. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Feedback. There's some evaluations on the table. If you wouldn't mind dropping those off on your way out, and thank you so much, and thank you, Dr. Alessio. This was wonderful.
Thanks, Erica. Thank you.
5 minutes. It's okay if I get the 5 minutes.
I think it's a little good in partners.
Okay, that's just ideas. Yes. You can-
But I think.
Still running? You're actually recording it?
Oh, you don't have to watch it.
I'm glad you're recording.
Get requests for something. to live out there.
Okay, that's
On
cool.
our
I like that.
emails. I'll get that to our comms team and they'll caption it.
Should have done.
I can have Amy things.
It's okay.
So it's.
What did you say? Wow.
And she said, you know, I'll help you. So it's there.
Appreciate the conversation.
Wait.